What's happening? MC Marcus Chapman here, ready to break down show number 22 in the MC 25, the 25 shows that I feel best represent what I brought to the radio business. And this particular show was done on July 10th of 1999, and it's called Height of the Hit Squad. The Hit Squad was myself, MC Marcus Chapman, and Dr. Love, and this show was done on 107.5 WGCI FM Chicago. Now, I started working at the station in summer 95. I had interned in summer 94. And in summer 95, I was coming down there. Rick Party invited me to hang out on his show. And eventually that turned to me working there as a studio assistant, just pulling the carts for the music and commercials and taking requests. And eventually that led to me joining the staff in other capacities, got on there, and eventually got my own show in 97. But when I first started working there in summer 95, or even before I was working, I was just hanging out. The second night that I hung out on Rick Party's show was the night that Dr. Love was there. This is when I met him because at the time he was doing a feature called Love Advice. He would get love advice in the worst way on Rick Party's 6 to 10 night show. And I think at the time he was doing it Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And so he was doing that for like about an hour on Rick's show. And that particular night, he did his love advice thing. He was hugely popular in Chicago. He had previously been, and still was at the time, a nightclub host and a party promoter, a concert promoter. So as he likes to say, he was already a popular guy in that scene, at least, before he got on the radio. He got on the radio, I believe, in like fall 94. And so when I got there and I started hanging out with Rick, Dr. Love was actually one of the people who was there who kind of showed me the ropes, not from the in studio standpoint, but from the outside social standpoint, because people like Rick Party, Armando, the late Lon Dyson, they showed me what to do in the studio, how crazy, how I'm gonna get a lot of people. But Doc was one of the people who kind of showed me a little bit more about the radio lifestyle, and so we had been hanging out. Matter of fact, I remember there was an artist at the time, Patra, a reggae artist. She had come down to the station and she had a couple of her dancers with her. There was one gorgeous dancer. Her name was Majida. I'll never forget. She was from New York. And me and her were talking. We was vibing and everything. And she gave me her phone number. But the number she gave me was her home number in New York. I remember Doc was like, when they left, he had noticed me talking to her. And I told her that, she gave me a number. He was like, what you gonna do? Call in New York? Like, you should have been trying to get that hotel room number. And I hadn't even thought about it. And so he was like, that's all right. You're a handsome young man. You could have got that, but we gonna show you how this radio thing goes. So I started kind of hanging out with him at different functions. And one thing that I noticed, he would always introduce me to people as if I was somebody important. He would always say, hey, this guy, he's a producer at the stage, he puts things together, da, 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 da. And most of the time people go, yeah, I ain't never heard of this dude, forget him. But he always tried to make it seem like I was bigger than what I was, and it's funny because I remember years later, somebody said, this was like been like around 2003, 2002, some dude I met through a female. He's like, yeah, I remember you was a Dr. Love flunky. And I was like, Negro, please, I ain't nobody's flunky. And I found it interesting because in not just in the radio business, but in life, it's very hard to find guys who are a little older than you to mentor you as you coming up. So I appreciated him sharing his knowledge. He would take, we would go to different clubs and parties, and I noticed he would tell me stuff about hosting parties, how, when you're on the mic at a party, you have the opportunity to make people really help them enjoy themselves even more, or you can make them never want to come out again if you say certain stuff, because a lot of times people will go out and it might be somebody's birthday. That person may not have gone out all year. And, when you're on the mic, you can make them feel special, make them feel good about coming out, or you can make them say, man, I ain't never going out no more. So little stuff like that I just noticed, just dealing with women, dealing with the club scene. He would share his knowledge. And, at the same time, I was, working my way up at the station. So by the time I got on consistently, when I was hosting the after set, he had been pretty much established. And then at a certain point, when Rick Party left and the Bad Boys took over 6 to 10 at night, Doc did the Love Advice with them. Then they didn't have it anymore. And then he ended up just doing he kind of turned into more so of a co-host as opposed to a feature. And that's when him and Sam were working together. So I remember June 20th of 1998, Sam had took off Saturday night and I guest starred for him and I worked with Doc and that went really well. But then in October, Devontae Stone had been doing Saturday and Sunday afternoon and he left to go to Detroit. Sam got promoted to the Saturday and Sunday afternoon show. So that left Saturday night 6 to 10 open. But even though I had done the show with Doc earlier and guest star for Sam, I wasn't the person that they picked for the job. And so that was probably one of the hardest points, probably the most devastating thing that happened in that first time that I worked at GCI, because I had only been on overnight, and that Saturday night 6 to 10 was a chance to really show people what I could do for real, because by that point I had gotten really good. But I got passed up, and it was really depressing. 1998 was not a good year overall for me. But then, about 3 weeks into it, I got a call saying that I was going to be the host of the Saturday night show with Doc. So that started October 24th of 98. And so we worked together throughout the end of 98. That was a really good time for me. I was in prime time. People, instead of dissing me before sometimes because people didn't know me, and folks can act funny if you're on a major station, but they don't know who you are. Now all of a sudden, it was a different reaction from people. Everybody was like, "Oh yeah, when people would ask me what time I came on Saturday night 6 to 10, oh yeah, I'll check you. That's before the party." So the thing is, in an overall radio sense, being on Saturday night 6 to 10 is not really that big of a deal. But at that time in Chicago on GCI, being on Saturday night 6 to 10 was huge. So Doc and I did a lot of stuff. I think the shows we did in 98, we were kind of filling each other out, even though we had known each other and hung out, we hadn't worked together too much. So we, kind of developed the chemistry. And by the time we get to 99, that's when we really started rolling and it started sounding really good. And initially, it was just MC Marcus Chapman and Dr. Love. And then one night, we started hosting a club, which was the River West Brewery. And it became known as Club Sugar Hill from a promotion standpoint, because there was another spot called the River West Infinity, and Teddy Gilmore was the guy who was throwing a party club net, they whole production, and he didn't want to confuse the two, so he started calling the River West Brewery Club Sugar Hill. So we were hosting that, and if you hosted it, you could mention the party once an hour the day of the event, as long as they were buying advertisements. So Teddy would buy the advertisement, and then we would go on the air and tell people once an hour where the party was. And then Doc would also mention the other spots he had to be at. He was at the Taste Entertainment Center on Saturday after he would leave River West. And then he had his own Jackpot Productions party at the Convent on Sunday. So he would mention those clubs, and I would mainly mention the Club Sugar Hill River West party. And so one night we were there. This was at the very end of 98, very beginning of 99. It had to be the end of 98 because on the January 2nd show we did, I had a recording of it. We referred to ourselves as the Hit Squad. So it was one of those parties in there. And Vince Adams was the DJ upstairs. Downstairs it was Ron Troop and Dave Boone. And one night, DJ Vince Adams, for whatever reason, we had just walked in. And he's on the mic. He's like, MC Marcus Chapman, Dr. Love from WGCI. And he said, Hit Squad. And me and Doc just kind of looked at each other like, that's it, Hit Squad. Because you had the Bad Boys, which was Mike Love and the Diz. And now we had the name, the Hit Squad. So we started rolling with that. And we started doing some really, really good shows in 99. There was one that I almost picked for the MC25 that was done on February 13th. I called it No Scrubs on the Third Floor. We had actually debuted three of the biggest hits in 99 that night, which were No Scrubs from TLC, What's It Gonna Be, Busta Rhymes and Janet Jackson, and My Name Is by Eminem, his debut single on a national scale. So that was a good show. That night, that we did the show. Actually, the previous week, February 6th, was really eventful. The show was good, but it was more so what happened after the show. That was, amazing. That's when I found out I was a real star. So going into February 13th, I had a different attitude. And that night that we went there, February 6th, we found out that they had created a stage at the club for us to stand on. So on February 13th, we started telling people, we were going to be on the stage. And then that night, I ended up finding out that there was a third floor to the club. So that's why it was called No Scrubs on the Third Floor. So that's a good show. We did some other good shows in the summer. August 21st, one called Fifth Night of Fire, because I was on 5 nights in a row. Me and Doc were on 2 nights. I did 2 nights by myself, and then the fifth night he came back, and that was a great Saturday night show. There was one the following week, August 28th, called Flying High with the Hit Squad. That's a good show. The night before that, we had Be a Star for the Bad Boys. We had Faith Evans in the studio. That was a good show. So we did a lot of really good stuff. The Taste of Chicago weekend, July 3rd of 99, that was good. And that was a show I remember specifically trying to make that like the greatest show, because you had the taste going on, everybody listening, it's popping, and that was good. But I think the following week, this particular show, number 22, July 10th of 99, I think that's the one that really captures what we brought to the table overall. We didn't have any celebrity guests in the studio. Nothing wild happened during the show or that I can recall after the show at the club. But it's just really a solid example of what we did. We brought a certain energy. Like these Saturday night 6 to 10 shows, when I say they were good, it's not because we had topics. We didn't have any topics or certain conversations going on. These were vibe shows, energy. Those shows really captured the energy of Chicago in the late 90s. The party scene, the club scene, just the vibe of what was happening. Because remember, the Chicago Bulls have been winning all those titles in the 90s. So that would always set the summer off, even though they were terrible going into 99, because that was the year after Jordan left. But that hangover was still there. Chicago was just a really energetic city. It was a great place to be. And those Saturday night shows we did really capture that. This one is a really solid performance. It's kind of like, I compared it to a baseball game where you have a pitching duel, and one team ends up winning 1-0 or something. You know what I'm saying? You got two great pitchers going at it. So it's not necessarily the most exciting show, although there was a few highlights. There was one point where we gave away a prize and I started going into this kind of fake newscaster voice. I was really imitating Lester Holt. He was doing CBS here in Chicago locally on the news, and then eventually he went to national. Back then he had a mustache. Lester Holt, bring your mustache back. Come on now. So I was like, oh, Lester Holt. And I didn't say Lester Holt, and then Doc tried to do it. And he's like, man, I can't do that, And then there's a part where we kind of going back and forth about a private party that I got invited to, but I didn't know I got invited to it. We talked about baseball and basketball. We were going back and forth on that. We had some good phone calls, a lot of good phone calls. The board work on my end was really tight, which I was always proud of. We had these drops because we were calling the show the official party spot for summertime in Chicago. And a production guy named Pat Garrett, he used to do a lot of drops for a lot of stations around the country, station imaging for a lot of stations. I think he still does. I had written the drops out, and the station submitted them to him, and he brought them back and made them sound huge. The official. I used to hear that, just get so hyped. It really sounds good overall. Matter of fact, I remember at the end of the show, I remember when we turned the mics off and signed off, I remember Doc applauding. He was like, good show, man, good show. Matter of fact, on the original tape, this is the original cassette tape of the show right here. July 10th, and on the back was the next week. But on the actual card, I wrote a good show. If you look, see, it's a good show. So that's just how I felt about it. You got to remember this. Max said put the labels on. So July 10th, 1999, I think is like the best example of what Dr. Love and I brought as the Hit Squad to WGCI at that time. We captured the energy of the 90s in Chicago, and you really hear that come through in the show. It's a show that I've listened to every now and then, and I'm proud of it. So I had to pick it for the MC25. It comes in at number 22. I think it's the best show overall that Dr. Love and I did together, but it is not the one that's the highest ranked in MC25. There are two more that are ranked higher. Matter of fact, the next one is coming up at number 21. But in the meantime, you can check out July 10th, 1999, height of the hit squad, height of our powers on WGCI in the summer 99, and it's popping, and I enjoy it. So check it out and see for yourself. Oh, real quick, all the little jingles that you hear, the little songs by like local artists and stuff, that was all Dr. Love stuff. That was stuff that he brought to the table, that creativity. He had those kind of relationships with a lot of local artists. And, you had Wata Gotti, who later went on to form a duo, Boo and Gotti, and they rapped on the Fiesta remix with R. Kelly back in 2001, which was the top hit of that year. There was a cat named Waxmaster, the Proj, and K Smooth. They used to do a lot of jingles for us, so we appreciated all of that stuff, and it just made the show sound liver. That type of stuff you don't even hear that in radio anymore. All that's gone, but those were relationships that Dr. Love had that made that work. And he added in a lot of stuff. A lot of times I was more so the person who kept everything on track and make sure we were handling station business and getting the info out. And he would add in little quick one-liners. He was real quick with that, with the callers and everything. And we were just gelling. We were gelling really well at that time. So it's a great show. July 10th, 1999. The energy of Chicago at that time comes in at number 22 in the MC 25. But like I said, the next one at number 21 is a different show that we did together. Even though this one is better, the other one is higher ranked, and you'll find out why in that video when I cut that one, all right?